Hello and welcome to a new series of Watercolour Challenge. We're kicking off this year's competition in Cornwall, where artists are thick on the ground. And today we're at spectacular Kynan's Cove, hidden amongst the towering cliffs of the Lizard Peninsula. A real test for every talent. Later this week, we'll be painting a subtropical garden, St Michael's Mount, a tin mine, and busy Falmouth Harbour. Just one of today's three artists will win a place in the Cornish final on Friday. He or she will have the chance to go on to our grand finals and perhaps to win a painting holiday in India. Well, all three artists live in this part of Cornwall, so they're all familiar with the landscape and with the magical Cornish light. But capturing it on paper, that's a different matter. Anyway, let's find out a bit more about them. Stephen Williams works at the local Naval Air Base as a vision technician, or a window cleaner to you and me. He became a watercolour painter after he enrolled for an evening class in welding. Penny Smith has lived in Cornwall for 30 years and raised her two daughters here, and when she's not painting, she's gardening. She's transformed an acre and a half of moorland into an award-winning plantsman's paradise. And Forrest Wern retired to Cornwall from Derby, where she used to teach in a secondary school. Well, now that school's out, she's enjoying an endless vacation, filling her days with painting and parties. She tells me that the real challenge in painting out of doors is learning not to knock over a glass of wine. Is everybody sitting comfortably?
Absolutely. Fine, thanks.
Okay, good, because you're going to be here for some considerable time. 4 hours. Very well. You may now begin. Well, while they get started, we can meet the man who painted this stunning seascape. He's this week's artist in residence. He lives on Cape Cornwall, Kurt Jackson. Now, Kurt, this is a coastline that you really love painting, I know. What's his particular appeal? Why do you like painting it so much?
I think probably because it's just such a dramatic part of the country. You know, you've got these beautiful plunging cliffs and coastlines, these big billowing seas, and ever-changing weather.
And what about the three painters over there? What are the challenges for them today? What are they going to look out for?
Well, today it's pretty dramatic. We've got a big sea, big surf coming in, so the sea is moving, so they've got to cope with that. They've got these big blocks of dark masses of the islands and the cliffs.
What, like you've done here almost, really?
Well, yeah, it's a similar subject that I tackle all the time. This is Land's End, this is the west side of Cornwall.
Similar sort of situation?
Very similar. We've got similar tones in the rock, so that's serpentine here. We've got more granite and shale over there.
Right, well, we'll wait and see.
Indeed.
There are three things that strike me here. One is the contrast between the dark drama of the rocks and the sea, of course, is rampaging. It's lovely. I shall just give an impression of it because my first love is pigment and water and what it can do and the excitement that it gives. And so I shall drop some colour in some water and tilt the board and try and get the movement of the sea and the impact of the darkness of the rock against the skyline. And that is a challenge.
The sea is very moody. It's very rough. You know, it's going to be hard to capture on paper. With the sky, I'm going to go wet into wet to make it flow more easily because it is an overcast day. I'm going to try and put a little bit of sunlight into it by blue sky with a little bit of the grey clouds that are already there.
It's probably the best place that you could have chosen for us to come and paint today because it's probably my favourite place in Cornwall. The challenge is not having too much rock in the painting because the rocks are quite dark without the sun on them, and capturing the crashing waves. I should probably build up and go from one area to another through the painting, trying not to overwork it. I think that the colours are lovely when the sun shines on them, but the shadows can be a bit oppressive.
Hello, Forrest.
Hello.
What about painting? How did it start?
Well, I retired early from teaching, and I taught very difficult children and loved it, and the adrenaline ran so much it gave me a buzz.
Yeah.
And when I had to retire early, I suffered such depression because of the lack of
Stimulus or-
adrenaline.
Yeah.
So my sister said, why don't you paint? And that is the thrill and the adrenaline runs, because if you put water on paper and flood it with pigment, you get woof, and it's wonderful. And sometimes it's awful, it looks dreadful, and other times it's like, did I do that?
So it's a real gamble.
It
Yeah.
is a challenge.
Yeah. Great. Well, onwards and upwards.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Thank you.
I am now approaching Steve, the vision technician. So when did the painting start then?
About 4 years ago, adult education classes.
What, you just decided you'd like to do something like that?
Yeah, that is hard to explain really, is that need to do something different.
So what made you choose painting?
The mother-in-law had a box of paints and it sort of stemmed from there.
What, you started dabbling with them?
Really, yeah.
So is this good today?
Now the weather's improving, yes.
I mean, do you like painting outside?
No, it normally takes too long. You know, it could be outside for 5 to 6 hours, which is a little bit long on one go.
Yeah.
Whereas if you work from photographs, you can do it at your own time.
Yeah.
So if the weather's poor, you're inside.
Well, you better get back at it then, haven't
I
you?
think I better.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Oh, that's nice.
Hello, Hannah.
Hello, Penny. How's it going? Weather-wise?
Weather-wise, it's a bit chilly.
How long have you been painting?
About 5 years, I suppose.
Oh, so again,
Yes.
you started quite
Yes,
recently.
yes. I painted at school. I got my Art O level.
Yeah. And what really started you again then, or started you off properly?
Well, my husband bought me a set of watercolour paints for Christmas.
Just out of the blue, not because you sort of asked for
No,
them or
no.
anything?
He knew I was sort of would like to start, but he thought that watercolours were the easiest medium, and he'd start me off on that.
And was that quite exciting to find that you could do
brilliant. Yes, it's a wonderful feeling when you realise you know you can put something on paper.
Yes.
Doesn't happen very often.
Well, I'm always amazed when people are good at art that they haven't actually done it all their lives, you know, that they didn't find out when they were
Yes.
kids.
I think perhaps we've all got it in us a bit.
You reckon?
Yes.
You have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You really feel the power of the sea at Kynan's Cove. It can be exhilarating, exciting, and sometimes threatening. Prince Albert and his children sailed here in the royal yacht and came ashore because they were also seasick. To commemorate the event, the locals named a rock after Prince Albert. Many of the rocks, caves and blowholes have wonderfully evocative names: the Bellows, the Devil's Mouth, Lion Rock. And the towering cliffs are Britain's largest outcrop of serpentine, a very rare, richly veined and colourful stone. I've just brought Kurt to have a look, Forrest.
Hello there.
Hello.
I think you're making great progress. You're starting to capture this big boiling sea out here. You've already got a feeling of the spray coming across. And although you've been mainly working on your rocks, and I love the way these French ultramarine pigments have started sort of clotting and forming these textural fields of the rocks already. I think you've already got a depth of field. You can tell these rocks are in front of these ones. Feeling of light coming through from the back. I think it's looking good.
Okay.
Very
Thank you.
dramatic. Was that really captured this morning, wasn't it? That
Yes,
sort
it
of
was
feel?
a very, very grey morning, and it's got that sort of. Now it's, of course, got a brilliance which it didn't have.
That must be very difficult, though.
It is difficult, but
Well,
that's,
I've got to get in some of that wonderful aquamarine viridian green when the waves turn, and yet it will argue with the picture, if you see what I mean. But I'll suggest it.
But it's, as Kurt says, it's great the way you've done it.
I like the
Lovely.
way you've used it freely. You've allowed the paint to flow and move on its own accord, and I think that's really
Good. The
nice way
texture
of
of
using
the rock.
watercolour.
I'm going to lug you off. Come on.
Good luck.
Thank
See
you.
later.
Is this the work of a welder? This is Kurt. Come to have a look.
All right, then, Kurt.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like the work of a welder at all. It's a very delicate watercolour, and you obviously really enjoy colour. I mean, you're really getting to grips with some of these colours in the rocks and the
Yeah.
sea.
Well, we know it's all full of serpentine, isn't it? You can see the red up in closer
Yep.
in there.
Well,
It's like a
So
wonderful
gotta be in
mosaic,
there.
that,
It's
isn't
got
it?
to be
Yeah.
there, so you've put
It's
it there.
gotta be there, yeah.
basically. And I see you've used some masking fluid
Yeah,
to produce the light, the sparkle of the
try to.
highlights.
Do you use masking fluid?
I've never used it. I must admit, I've never even tried it. But maybe one day. But I've nothing against it. It's just another approach.
Oh, is that a good sky? It looks a good sky to me.
It's a very cheerful sky, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I can remember this morning we did have clouds coming over and patches of blue sky. I mean, now it's gone back to that because it was quite miserable at one moment.
Does that balance with a great degree of colour in the foreground there, in the background?
It balances because he's used it the same approach all over. So
Good.
anyway, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here we are, Penny, with Kurt.
Hello, Kurt.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You pleased with that?
Yes, so far
Good.
so good, I think.
I like the composition you've chosen anyway. Very balanced. Did you choose that because you like the form of the rocks, or because you
Well, actually,
didn't want to paint the sea too much?
I wanted this rock off centre, and then
Right.
of course this one did come in centre.
Because
So
these areas are very much, well, they're very balanced, aren't
Yes,
they?
yes.
I see you've used a lot of masking fluid around here.
yes,
And
I could
have
have
you
done
taken
with
it off here?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
okay. And are you confident about working at these areas of foaming sea that you haven't
Yes, I'm
tackled yet?
leaving that till last.
Okay.
But it looks like you've concentrated more on the rocks. Are you more interested in the rock formations than the sea, in fact? Or is
No,
that...
I'm a bit scared of the sea, I suppose. It is something that's going to have to go in pretty quickly, and not an awful lot of it because it's mostly foam. So it'll just be a hint of a sea, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the rocks need form, don't they?
Yeah.
Wonderful colours.
Brilliant.
so-
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Good luck.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you.
Will Penny's calm sea turn stormy? What will Stephen do with the white spaces in the middle? And can Forest lift her winter storm with summer light? Well, these are the watercolour challenges that remain. Will they be able to tackle them in time? Join us after the break. Well, welcome back to Kynan's Cove in Cornwall, where the waves have been pounding these shores for centuries. But our artists have only been pounding their paper for 2 hours. That means they've got 2 hours left to complete their watercolour challenge.
I've still got to do the foreground rocks and that dramatic sea. The rocks in the background, I have much more given an impression and an outline, a silhouette as it were. And the rocks in the foreground, if I don't paint the detail, I need to give the texture. And to do that, I've deliberately used ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And when you sort of tip the board, if it's loose and wet, which I like to paint wet, it separates and sort of falls into the pockets of the paper and therefore gives a feeling of texture.
I've achieved putting the sky in, which is all done. Most of the sea, barring a couple of little details at the end. But I've still got quite a bit to do on the rocks. What's challenging me is putting the colours in on the rock, just trying to pick up on different colours that are there, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Because you look at the rocks, they look black and grey, and the closer you look, you can see these little tiny bits in there.
I have a lot of work to do on the rocks to make them look faceted as opposed to flat, introduce some more colours into them and give the impression of sunlight falling on them. I still got the sea to do, which is a bit daunting because it's changing all the time, and I have to remove the masking fluid, which hopefully will reveal the spray. Masking fluid tends to leave straight, hard lines, so you have to soften them so that you don't just get a white space, because the surf has the colours of the sea and the sky and the sand in it. So it's a question of just putting some shading on the places where the masking fluid has come off.
Well, Kurt Jackson, our art expert for this Cornish week, is about to share some of his professional secrets with us. Inside that old tin can, you've got some nice fresh clean water there. What are you going to do with it?
Well, it's clean enough. Ideally you want to use fresh water. But
Why is that?
Because watercolour is about water and colour, not just colour, and people forget about the importance of the way the water works with the colour. So I'm going to show a couple of techniques I've used which combine that water and the white of the page. So if we're thinking about painting the sea today has got beautiful light shining off it. The brightest white you can have is the white of the page. So one of the first things you need to do is decide where those areas of white are going to be. So you can literally just paint round them and leave areas of white to show through. I mean, some people use masking fluid like this, but I've never done that. So you can do that. The other way is to bring the white out again, so uncover it. And to do that, you need reasonably clean water. This is a wash I put down earlier, and by putting droplets of clean water on there, leave it a little while and lifting it off like this. But it's one of those techniques which you can use to build up the feeling of the sea.
The paintings that you showed us this morning were all seascapes. Now obviously that was because we're painting the sea today, but that's really important.
I enjoy that challenge, But I mean, it could equally be painting by a stream or a river or a lake. But it's just one aspect of my work is painting water and painting it with watercolour.
Great. Thank you very much, Kurt. The Victorian diarist Parson Kilvert wrote, "The splendour of the place, the gorgeous blue and beauty of the broad sea, the coloured rocks, the towering cliffs, the golden swimming mellow light amongst the huge dark rock masses, indescribable." And 19th century excursionists used to venture down the steep cliff paths by donkey, the ladies clutching their watercolours and their sketchbooks.
I don't mind the background because that was all done in one. It's at the foreground, I think, is the pits. Difficult has been mainly the weather, the wind, which blows the board off and blows the easel over and has blown my mixed colours over. But nevertheless, that's the challenge. Being cold, which makes my hand tremble, and when I try to do a line, it goes.
It's come out a lot better than what I thought, because I'm not accustomed to working outside. It is quite bright in colours, which I don't normally use, but I had to pick up on something. I paint quite slow. I suppose the most difficult is worrying about the time, to make sure that I've got enough time to do it.
I'm quite happy with it. I don't think anyone is ever completely happy, but I feel if I continue fiddling, I'm going to just fiddle too much. Sometimes it's difficult to know when to stop painting. It's very easy to overwork, particularly a watercolour painting, and I think you decide that it's finished when you are reluctant to put any more marks on the paper.
I'm sorry everybody, but the clock has finally beaten us for today, so will you stop painting, please? Thank you. Kurt, come and have a look.
We're there at last. How are you feeling about it?
Well, the top bit's okay.
You like this
The
bit?
top bit's okay, the bottom bit I think is a bit rubbish.
I don't think it's rubbish at all.
Neither do I.
Really enjoyed watching you do all this bit, and I was looking forward to seeing how you finished it, especially when I heard you were going to put the gouache on, and I was hoping you were going to go really wild with that and pour it across it and produce a lot of movement in the water. But I felt it's a bit stilted here, and maybe it would be nice to have a little more of a sparkle in it, but it's a great painting.
Good. Come on, let's look at Steve's. Oh, Steve, what a big jump.
Yeah,
Well, completed it last.
at last.
Are you pleased? What's
Rocks
the
aren't
strong
bad.
point? The rocks.
Rocks.
I agree. I think
Beautiful.
beautiful colour in there. I know you were aiming to get
Yeah.
the serpentine colours, and you got them in there. The blacks, the reds, the greens.
Old Sea's a bit weak going. Do with the
Yeah, maybe
Someone
I agree.
else.
Maybe you sort of painted the waves how you thought they were. But some
Definitely.
beautiful colour. You obviously really enjoy your colour, and that's
Wonderful.
great to see.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Ah, Penny, the sea at last.
Yes.
Are you pleased with it all? These areas, we've now got water instead of blankness, and
yes.
you've removed your masking fluid,
Yes.
which has created a feeling of movement in the water. I think your real strong point is your composition.
And that's splattered with it. Is that the toothbrush?
That's the toothbrush.
That's the toothbrush.
Yes.
By the toothbrush method.
Yes.
Okay.
A well-worn one.
So who will win today's watercolour challenge? Will it be Forrest, who has caught the drama of the scene and the beautiful sea green of the waves? Or Steve, who's brought out the colour of the serpentine rocks? Or Penny, who is strong on composition and the feeling of movement in the water? 3 paintings, 3 very different styles. Well, Kurt, I know that you've been impressed by the work that all 3 of our painters have done today. In fact, he said to me at one point that he could have chosen any one of your pictures. However, Kurt, that's a bit of a cop-out because you're going to have to choose the winner. So who's it to be?
Well, I found it really difficult. I think they're all brilliant paintings in their own ways, and in fact I've changed my mind quite a few times throughout the day. But because of, I think, the strengths in composition and the movement in the water, I've decided it's Penny.
Well, Penny, congratulations, and I have this rather splendid wooden box with painting accoutrements, and it's for you.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really well
Thank
done.
you.
It is our policy that there are no losers on Watercolour Challenge, and so we've got this painting field painting kits, get it in the right order.
Something like that.
And there's one for each of you. So come and receive.
Well done, mate. Nice one.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Congratulations.
Well done, Forrest.
Tomorrow, 3 more artists will take up the Watercolour Challenge at Treba Garden, where I'm promised the scene should be subtropical. Meanwhile, from everybody here at Kynan's Cove, goodbye.